create the Git repository from the command line. You know how to do that? Who knows the command? Yeah, what is it? Git init, yes. So make darn sure you are in the user directory folder, not the parent directory of that, not your home directory, for heaven's sake. Inevitably, someone accidentally makes a Git repository in their home directory, and everything is just a disaster. Try not to do that. So Git init. Initialized empty Git repository in user directory /.git. On Unix machines, including Mac and Linux, putting a dot at the beginning of a file name makes that file hidden. That doesn't happen on Windows, so you'll probably still actually see the file, but we can open it still. So we're going to open it in Finder or Explorer on Windows just to take a quick look at it. So I'm going to type open space.git or start space.git on Windows to open up a Finder folder real quick. And this is an empty Git repository. Doesn't look super empty, does it? It has a config file, description, head, as well as 4 folders. But this is empty. This is where the repository actually lives. This is where it actually saves all your previous revisions. But we don't even need to know that, right? Git just takes care of it invisibly. But if you're ever wondering why, when you copy a folder that has a Git repository onto another disk or something, the Git repository goes with it, that's because this directory is there. So that's how it keeps track of it. Nifty wifty. Now if we type git status, we will see no commits yet, and there is an untracked file, index.html. Anybody have an additional untracked file? Yeah, what is it? .ds store. Anybody else have a different one? Anybody on Windows? Yeah. Oh, same one, right, yeah. So that is a file in which macOS stores information about how you want to view that folder. So if you ever open that folder in Finder, it's going to automatically create a DS store file. Windows will do the same, but it's called thumbsdb. So let's just make it so that it's not going to commit that in our Git repository. We'll do that by creating a git ignore file. So let's type touch.gitignore, all lowercase, all one word like that. Touch.gitignore. That's a file that tells Git to ignore certain files inside this project. So back in code, let's look for our git ignore file that we created. There it is. And I'm just going to add dot capital D capital S underscore capital S store like that. And I'm going to add thumbs.db. So if those files do get created at some point, it will ignore them. We'll do that before we create our first commit so that we don't end up having it in there already. Now if you do a git status, you should no longer see that file. You should see git ignore though. You'll see git ignore and index.html. They're untracked because Git is paying no attention whatsoever to these files now. So we need to add them to our index. We'll talk more about how Git works tomorrow. But for right now, in order to tell Git to even pay attention to these things, we need to stage them. For that, we use git add. We could do git add, say, index.html. Then we do a git status, and we see that index is to be committed and git ignore is still untracked. To add all of the untracked files, we could do git add dot for current directory, and that would just add all of them. So now git status shows us both git ignore and index.html. So if you've got that, you've got them green now, we'll commit git space commit -m for message. This is how we type our commit messages. Double quote, initial commit, end quote. And you should see something like this, create mode, etc. Does anyone get an error at this point? Does anyone complain about not having a username or email or something like that? Commit works for everybody? You should do a git status at this point. it should say working directory clean, nothing to commit. If at any point the screen isn't big enough for you, please let me know. I'll zoom in. Not yet. So now what we have is a Git repository on our local machine. So we can keep committing to it, and then we'll have the full history, so we could go back to our old changes at any time, but it is still all on your laptop. Yeah, that's the next thing we're going to do. What are we having trouble with? Everybody good? Anybody need me to stay paused? Okay? Okay. Now then, you have a Git repository on your local machine. You can store your history locally. You could go back to your previous revisions, but it is still all on your laptop. So let's get it connected to GitHub. So a Git repository can live entirely on one machine, but you can also add remotes. And GitHub would be a remote that you add, which is just another computer where it will also store the repository. So we're going to do that, and it can synchronize the two. So in your browser, go ahead and go to your GitHub account. Create a new repository. You can hit the little plus sign there, say new repository. Okay, give it a repository name, like, say, user directory. You don't need to change anything else. Keep it public. Do not initialize it because we already initialized it on our laptops, right? Say create repository, and you'll see this, which has a variety of instructions. Now, ordinarily, I would say use SSH, but since you're on the guest network at Marion, it blocks port 22, which is where SSH happens. So you need to switch to HTTPS for the time being. So switch that over to HTTPS, and it'll actually change the commands that it lists here. We already have an existing repository from the command, so we want these two lines right here. Push an existing repository from the command line. So copy those. Use the little copy button that's there, which you'll often see on our website too, so you don't mistype them. And then we'll paste those in here. So two commands. You will have to enter your, this is why I don't use HTTPS. I'm going to use you'll need to use HTTPS, but I don't know my GitHub password right this second, and I don't want to look it up. Git remote, remove origin. So that's two commands, git remote, add origin, and then the URL. So that one adds the remote and names it origin so that you can push and pull later. The second command, git push -u origin master. So it's telling it to push to a specific remote to the master branch, and the -u means track this branch from now on. So So every time I say git pull or git push, unless I tell you otherwise, use this branch that we just synced with. So in the future, you can just say git push or git pull. You dig? Did it not work for anyone? It's okay if it didn't work. There could be any number of things wrong, but please tell us so we can work through it. Are we good? This must be some kind of Christmas miracle.
Had a lot of different errors this morning, so it's kind of shocking that we have any of us also. Just let us know we're slacking.
You know what I think it is? Calpin can perform miracles, and since it's so close to his birthday, he made all your GitHubs work just right off the bat. That's what I think happened. I can't prove it. If you're in Hyper or something, it is Shift Control V instead of just Control V. I think so. Look under the little menu there. Edit. Paste is Control Shift V. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So once you've done that, if you refresh this page on your GitHub, you should actually see your repository complete with your commit. Cool.